In today's video, a gang of brazen smash-and-grab bandits attempts to pilfer power crystals from an enclave of bone-collecting cannibals as we test drive the Brutality Skirmish wargame rules. Well, hi folks, this is Lee from skirmishwargames.com. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be test driving the Brutality Skirmish wargame rules, designed by wargaming hobbyist, columnist, and podcaster Scott Wainwright. In a nutshell, Brutality allows you to take 28mm wargaming miniatures from any timeline or reality, bring them all together in the same pocket universe, and then have them battle each other in violent skirmishes until the end of time. Brutality is designed for quick gameplay within a rich narrative world, offering nearly unlimited potential for creating unique storylines and scenarios. It's also engineered to be very balanced, so each individual soldier, no matter what his or her troop type, has at least the potential to challenge any other unit on the battlefield. The story of the Brutality universe goes something like this. After centuries of inexcusable neglect, the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar has devised a plan to reclaim her former power and glory. She's kidnapping beings from across the multiverse and depositing them on a bizarre landmass of her own creation, which inhabitants call the Brutal Realm or the Brutality. On this savage continent from which there is no escape, captured souls fight eternally amongst each other for limited resources, while also trying to gain Ishtar's favor by exalting her at various shrines that seemingly wink in and out of existence at random. No one dies in the Brutality. Slain warriors wake up each morning alive and well, ready to battle again, while all around them countless factions and secret societies plot for wealth, power, or other far more nefarious objectives. Brutality has been in development since 2016, and you can, in fact, download a free version of the rule set on the Brutality Skirmish Wargame Facebook page. However, there's also a just completed deluxe version of the rules, which is available for purchase as either a digital PDF or a very handsome hardback book. This new expanded version of Brutality includes copious lore for the various factions, a campaign mode, new unit abilities, upgrades, and faction traits, full solo and co-op rules, and a bunch of other good stuff. You can pick up a copy of your very own at brutalityskirmishwargame.com. Okay, now that we have somewhat of a handle on the Brutality universe, let's talk about gameplay. Brutality is meant to be played with warbands of 4 to 8 models on a 3x3 wargaming mat or RPG board, but obviously you can tweak that according to your preference. Warband unit creation is a little different than your typical skirmish wargame, but it's pretty interesting once you get the hang of it. You start by selecting from a short list of basic troop types: melee, fast, ranged, and support, and then you customize each of your units by selecting various traits and or powers. And then, depending on what parameters you and your opponent have agreed upon, you might each upgrade one or more of those troops, giving those troops a buff to their stats and possibly access to additional abilities. Let me give you a sense of how that works by showing you the warbands we'll be using in today's game. Okay, well here's the first of the 2 warbands that we'll be featuring in today's game. These guys are called Mongo's Misfits, and they're essentially a smash-and-grab bandit gang. Since the Misfits are professional thieves, we gave them the Trickery faction trait, which means that their enemies never benefit from any rear arc attack bonuses. The Misfits are led by Mongo the Grot. He is a basic fast with the hide ability, a 6-inch ranged weapon, a buff on his save attribute, and an aura power. Mongo is supported in his efforts by Big Bopper. Big Bopper is a melee brute, which is an upgrade to the basic melee troop type. His abilities include Clobber. He gets a +1 on his save attribute and a +1 on his fighting skill. Plus, he can throw enemies around. If he's in melee and he does more damage to the enemy than the enemy does to him, he can toss that enemy 6 inches in any direction. Big Bopper's younger sibling is aptly named Little Bopper. Little Bopper is a fast skirmisher, which is an upgrade on the basic fast troop type. He has the lightning fast ability, giving him a buff on his run and charge rolls. He also gets a buff on his dexterity and his save attribute. This Imperial Guardsman here is named King Rat. He is a basic ranged. He has a 20-inch ranged weapon with 2 shots and the point blank ability, which means if an enemy is within half range, King Rat gets a +1 to hit. And the final member of the Misfits is Nigel. He is a basic melee troop type. He has the Sturdy ability, which means he treats wound chart rolls of 1 to 4 as nothing. He gets a +1 on his fighting skill, and he has a power, Disrupt, which we are saying is basically a set of bolas that he has, and if he throws it at someone at 6-inch range, he can give them a pause token. He can basically wrap them up for a little while. So that is our smash and grab bandit team, otherwise known as Mongo's Misfits. And their mission today, they're going to try to sneak into a cannibal camp and steal some power crystals right from under the cannibals' collective noses. So with that in mind, let's meet those cannibals. So Mongo's Misfits is going to be attempting to steal power crystals from a group of cannibals known as the Bone Pickers. And their faction trait, believe it or not, is faith, because they're pretty devoted to their altar of Ishtar there. And their faith faction trait means that they get to re-roll any invocation rolls of a 1, which otherwise would be a catastrophic failure. The Bone Pickers are led by a character known as the Shadow Fiend. He is a support controller, which is an upgrade to the basic support troop type. He is not much in hand-to-hand combat, but he has a bunch of powers like mind control, summon, curse, and he has a legendary trait, invisible, which makes it harder for ranged attackers to hit him. The fastest member of the cannibal clan is William H. Goat. He is a basic fast, but he has a +2 movement trait. He also has Clobber as an ability, which means that when he rolls a natural 1 or 2 with a melee attack, the target suffers a -1 save when trying to save the damage. Next to William H. Goat is Sir Gottfried. He is a basic melee with defensive training, +1 fighting skill, and +1 save. This happy little fellow here is Vidar Grimson. He is also a basic melee. He has a sturdy ability, which means that when he has to roll on the wound chart, he treats results of 1 to 4 as nothing. He has +1 fighting skill and +1 dex. And finally, here on the end is Flagellus Maximus. You might remember him from our Gwar Rumblin' Antarctica gameplay video. But in this universe, he is a pistolier. He has 2 10-inch ranged weapons. He gets to reroll missed hits. And if he's within 1/2 of his max range, he gets a +1 on his ranged attacks. He also has a +1 dex trait and a +1 save trait. So that's our warband of fine young cannibals, otherwise known as the Bone Pickers, and they're going to do their best to protect those power crystals and maybe even collect a few bones for the altar of Ishtar, because when the altar's happy, everybody's happy. Okay, folks, here we are. It's time for us to do our official test drive of the Brutality Skirmish rules, and as you can see, we've pre-deployed our forces, so the cannibal clan, known as the Bone Pickers, is on this side, and Mongo's Misfits, the smash and grab bandit team, is on the other side. So the Brutality rulebook recommends that this game be played on a 3x3 battle area, and we're using a 30x22 mat here, which is more of a kill team size mat, which should condense the action considerably. So normally in a game of Brutality, there's a couple of different ways where teams can get victory points. That includes killing an enemy, or scavenging supplies, or invoking Ishtar's power at a shrine or an altar. But for our scenario, as is our habit, we've kind of made our own rules, so we're going to say that our 2 teams have different agendas, and so they're going to generate victory points in different ways. So the cannibals, on one hand, what they're trying to do is they have found this shrine out here in the wasteland, and normally these shrines to Ishtar, they sort of appear, they disappear, they move around, they don't stay in one place, and so when people find one, they try to use them to invoke Ishtar's power, and maybe they get some food, or they get some insight, or they get a special weapon or whatever. But they're pretty valuable to have. So this one here, this particular shrine, the cannibals have figured out that if they feed it, if they provide it with bones, that it sticks around. And not only does it stick around, but it seems to stimulate the generation of these crystals, these power crystals. So there are androids and robots and machines in the Brutality universe, but they don't have normal power sources. And so once they run out of the regular fuel, they need to generate power with these crystals. So these crystals are pretty valuable. So the cannibals have figured out that as long as they keep feeding the altar there, that not only does the shrine stick around, but these crystals grow. And when the crystals grow, that means people come and try to scavenge the crystals, which makes for a new source of bones. So getting a bone in this particular universe, this pocket universe, this sort of terrarium that Ishtar has put together, is pretty difficult. Because once somebody's killed, they just disappear and they wake up basically where they woke up that morning, fully intact. So what you need to do is you need to remove a limb, foot or an arm or whatever, and keep a hold of it, and then wait until the person goes to sleep, and then they wake up without an arm, and then the cannibals have a bone, basically, a thigh bone or an arm bone or a toe bone or whatever they got that they can put on the shrine. So that takes a little bit of particular effort, because they can't just kill somebody and then take the skeleton. They have to actually lop off a limb and then hold on to it and until that victim goes to sleep. So anyway, they're always on the hunt for new bones because they like their little camp they got here, and they like the fact that they have an altar that stays in place, and they like the fact that they have a draw for people to come in. So these crystals, late at night, can be seen from long distances away. They're kind of like the lights of Vegas. So people who are scavenging can see them, and they kind of come into the cannibal camp. Well, Mongo and his team, his smash and grab team, they come from the 40K universe, and they've kind of had their fill of chaos gods and other entities of that type. So they are really not into invoking power at the shrine, and they're not as interested in killing people. They will to get the job done, but really what they're interested in is the crystals. So in this scenario, the cannibals will get victory points from killing an enemy and also by invoking power at the shrine, and Mongo's team will mostly get victory points from scavenging crystals. But if they happen to kill the enemy leader, the Shadow Fiend, Mongo's team does get 2 victory points, and of course if Mongo dies, then he's worth 2 victory points. So cannibals are going to try to kill people. They're going to try to invoke at the shrine. And then Mongo's team, for the most part, is going to try to scavenge crystals. So we have pre-deployed these guys, and we'll kind of walk you through the rules as we go. And as I like to say, whenever we play one of these games, please take it with a grain of salt, because we've read the rules, we've watched the sample videos, we've gone back and forth, we did our practice game. But sometimes, you get a rule book and you read it, and then whatever you do is really your interpretation of what you've read. So anyway, all that is to say is that this is kind of how we took it when we read the rule book and watched the videos. And, you might read the rules and see it a little bit differently. And of course, the author might have a totally different opinion. But we will do our best, and hopefully at least you get a flavor of the game. So we have already pre-deployed, and Mongo's smash and grab team is going to be trying to get crystals. And the cannibals are going to be trying to harvest some bones, and also, maybe check in with Ishtar at the shrine. So as I probably mentioned earlier, Brutality has some light RPG elements built into it, and the world building is pretty intensive, and so there's a lot of options to build very unique characters with some very interesting abilities. And hopefully we can remember all of those, all the abilities and traits and powers we've assigned to each of our characters, and use them to their best advantage. So with that in mind, Lynn, are you ready to get Mongo's Misfits in here and try to steal some crystals?
May the crystal harvesting begin.
And try to keep all your bones. Try not to lose any limbs during this process. So as I said, we've pre-deployed, and we've sort of determined that the bone pickers are going to make the first move, and then after that it's alternating. So each unit will get 2 actions, one sort of a movement type action and then a combat type action, and we'll explain some of the options under each of those categories. So anyway, for my first activation, I'm going to activate Flagellus Maximus, who was formerly a member of Cardinal Sin's retinue back when we did the GWAR tabletop war game test drive, and he got sucked into the multiverse, and so he's not as powerful here in the Brutal realm as he was back in the GWAR universe, and that is because Ishtar is kind of considered the great leveler. So a lot of big creatures are kind of brought down to size, and a lot of little creatures are empowered, and so it's designed to be a very balanced game. So Flagellus is not as powerful as he was, but he is a pistolier, which is an upgrade from the basic ranged character. So he has got a couple of ranged weapons and a hand-to-hand combat weapon, and he is going to move his 6. That is going to be his first action. His first movement action, and then he gets a combat action after that, assuming that anyone is in range. The range of his ranged weapons is only 10, as opposed to King Rat, who I think has a range of 20 over there. But since no one's in range, he is going to use a run action in his combat phase, which is an additional movement you can make. And he's going to roll a d10 to determine how far he can run. And he can run 5, so he is going to run kind of around this way and take cover behind that rock. So this is a 4-turn game, so our objective here is to try to get as many victory points as we can over the course of 4 turns. So every turn counts. So that is my first activation. That's Flagellus Maximus, and he's running around the rock here. So the activations are alternating, so now Lynn, you get to activate somebody. So who's first up on your team?
So as you know from previous games, Mongo likes shinies. And he's really close to a crystal. His movement is 6, so he's going to take a run over to that fancy little shiny crystal that he likes.
And try to hack off a piece.
As his second action.
The last time we saw Mongo, he was running from some Imperial Guard Rough Riders. his survival skills have served him well so far, so now he's the leader of his own team as opposed to being just a grot in the orc army. So anyway, he's going to run up, and then, so that is his movement action, and now he gets a combat action, and one of the things you can do in your combat action is try to scavenge. So he's going to try to knock off a piece of crystal.
He's going to try to knock off a piece of crystal. He just doesn't want to roll a 0 or a 1.
Yeah, you don't want a 1 or a 10. An 8, so that is a success, so you get 1 victory point.
So I get a chunk of crystal.
Had you rolled a 1, the crystal would have exploded. Had you rolled a 10...
A wandering beast.
Yeah, the crystal guardian would have wandered onto the map and started indiscriminately attacking people, so nobody wants that. Okay, so Mongo has successfully pilfered his first shard of crystal from the Cannibals' crystal garden. Yeah, in case I didn't mention it before, so they have actually, Mongo's team has actually taken a contract to come in here and grab some of these crystals because they've been contacted by a shadowy group known as the Wayfinders, who are kind of anti-Ishtar activists, and they kind of keep undercover. But they've told Mongo and his team that if they can collect enough crystals, they have some sort of a portal that they've cobbled together, and they may be able to slingshot Mongo's team back to their original homes or someplace close, someplace relatively close. So if Mongo's team is successful, then they may pop up in another universe, perhaps another game at some point. But for now, they're going to try to get some crystals and try to keep all their bones, which is important.
Mongo likes all his bones intact.
He likes
it's
his
easier
bones.
to scavenge then.
So for my next activation, I'm going to activate the Shadow Fiend. He is the leader of the Bone Pickers, and he is a support controller, which is an upgrade from the standard support unit. So while he's not all that great in hand-to-hand combat, he does have a lot of powers and traits, which hopefully are going to make life really interesting for Mongo's Misfits. And you may have noticed that all of the Bone Pickers have horned helmets or actual horns, so that's kind of their calling card. But for the Shadow Fiend's combat activation, he's actually going to run. He's going to run 3. We should put him right about there. Okay, that is the Shadow Fiend. And now Mongo's Misfits gets to activate somebody. So Mongo's Misfits are kind of hanging out by the shrine here, and under normal circumstances, they could invoke the powers of Ishtar to try to get victory point. But they're not really believers. They're sort of anti-establishment, anti-authority folks, and so they're not going to do that. They're just going to try to steal crystals and maybe kill a leader if they can.
So Nigel is a basic melee. His move is 6.
So this is Nigel here, and you may recognize Nigel as a late 80s, early 90s Games Workshop ogre. He might be made out of lead. But he got inducted into the Imperial Guard. He was not a very good soldier, but he was a very good cook. And so he was on KP duty and somehow got sucked into a portal, and now he's in the Brutality. So fortunately, all ogres can fight.
So Nigel takes his move action. Then he is going to run.
All right. We're going to say he can run under the bridge if he wants to.
He can run 1.
1. Not much of a run there, Nigel, but... So don't forget, we each get a command point every turn that we have to use that turn, and that gives 1 unit on each team a free action.
Your turn.
Okay, so for my turn, I'm going to move William H. Goat, Esquire. He is a basic fast, but one of his traits is +2 movement, so he has a movement of 10. So he's pretty quick. So he's going to rocket up 10. He could try to charge those guys, but he probably wouldn't make it. But he could use his free action, my command point basically, to run. I could run up a little bit and then hopefully get within charge range. So that's what he's going to try to do. All of the units here basically have a 2-inch bubble. And so when you're doing your normal move, you have to stay outside of that 2-inch bubble when dealing with an enemy. But you can charge. So basically, William H. Goat, Esquire, has made his normal move of 10. Now he's going to use his free action to try to run. And then he will try to charge. So maybe he can get all the way across there.
He might be able to.
He might be able to. Okay, so D10 on his run. His run is 7. So he's going to go ahead and run 7. Now that he's a little bit closer, William H. Goat, Esquire, is going to try to charge King Rat, who you might remember from, I think, our Burna Boy Kill Team game that we had. And King Rat was a survivor. We fudged a couple of rules. We made some mistakes, but he ended up surviving to the end, despite being crisped by a flamethrower and shot by some kind of a a big Mega Blaster. But anyway, here he is in the Brutality, and he's about to get charged by William H. Goat, who charges 6 and gets in there. So he's going to get right in there. So William H. Goat, Esquire, his troop type is a fast. He's a basic fast. So he only gets 1 attack die, but because he charged, he gets 2. So King Rat is a basic ranged, correct?
King Rat is a basic range, so normally he would have 2 shots with his weapon, but that weapon isn't valid in close combat, so he's using his fists.
And William H. Goat actually is considered armed, quote unquote, because he has hand weapons, and King Rat is not. So I get 2 dice for William H. Goat, and his fight skill is 6, so he needs to get a 1 through 6 on these dice. Okay, so William H. Goat got a 3, and he got a 10. The 3 is a hit. The 10 is an automatic miss. Do you want to take your save roll first? Okay, what is your save?
My save is 2.
So a 1 or a 2, you save it, and you don't. So that's 1 hit that you take. And then since William H. Goat is armed with a hand weapon, we'll roll on the wound chart here in a second. But you have your attack that you make.
My fight skill is 4. So I rolled a 1, which is a critical hit, which means 2 damage go through unless he saves against it.
The goat has a save of 2, so he needs a 1 or a 2. 1. He did save 1. So we each did 1 hit. So William H. Goat takes 1 hit off of his hit points of 3. You take 1 hit off of your hit points of 3, but we get to roll on the wound chart for the goat because he had some sort of an axe or a sword.
So King Rat and the goat are both down to 2.
Down to 2 hit points apiece. We're going to roll on the wound chart.
So the wound chart, are you going to be piercing, crushing, or burning?
Yeah, when you successfully get a melee point through with a hand weapon, then you can choose the piercing, crushing, or burning wound charts. And if you shoot someone with a missile weapon, you can choose any of those charts. So we're going to say that the goat has a piercing weapon, so I'm going to roll a d10 and see what the effect is from that melee thing that he went through. And an 8 is agony. So King Rat is now in agony, so that means he must make a willpower check at the start of each activation. If he fails, he is in agony and may not make any actions in the action phase. If it passes, then the agony effect is removed and he immediately acts as normal. So once melee is completed, there's supposed to be 2 inches difference between the attacker and the person who's attacked. And normally that would mean the person who was charged would move back 2 inches. Here they're kind of shoehorned in between Big Bopper, the ogre here, but you just want to say maybe just like that. Would that work for you? Moving back a little more?
A little bit more.
So they're outside of each other's bubble, basically. So that is William H. Goat. Now you get to activate somebody. Who's on your mind?
So Big Bopper has a movement of 6. So he is going to move around over here. And he's going to try to charge the goat in the back. Got a 4.
Okay, so Big Bopper successfully charges William H. Goat. He is going to get 1 extra attack die for charging, and he's going to get a +2 on his fight skill because he's attacking from the rear. So what's his fight skill normally?
His fight skill is normally 7, so it'll be 9.
So his fight skill is 9, so he just doesn't want to get a 10.
7, 4, and 8, so 3 hits.
3 hits. And actually you can spin William H. Goat around, and he's going to attack. So even though he was attacked from the rear, we spin him around face to face for melee. So he gets his 1 attack still. I guess he should try to save, though. So Big Bopper got 3 hits on William H. Goat. That means I got to try to save 3 times, and my save is only 2. So 1. I did get 1 save. Okay, so he got a 7 and a 10, which is an automatic fail, and then a 2. So 1 success. So he took 2 damage. Then he gets 1 attack as well. 3. So he was successful. Do you want to try to save that?
My save is on Big Bopper is a 4. 7. Nope.
So we each took a hit. I took 2 hits. And that actually kills William H. Goat because he already took a wound from fighting King Rat. So he's dead. Which is kind of a shame because you were looking
I wanted to throw him.
You were looking forward to throwing him. If you'd have scored more damage on him than he'd scored on you, and he was still alive, You could have tossed him 6 inches, probably into the shrine, which would have been hilarious.
No, not into the shrine. I would have thrown him into the rocks. Because if I threw him into the shrine, he could pray.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still going to throw him just for fun.
All right, so you're going to toss him somewhere. Okay, but he's dead.
Yep,
William
I just
H.
threw
Goat.
his corpse.
William H. Goat is dead, but he still gets to roll on the wound chart against you.
What is he rolling under?
Piercing,
Okay.
and that is a 9, so that is bleeding, which means that Big Bopper loses 1 hit point at the start of each time it's activated, unless this model or a friendly model can staunch the bleeding, which is an action. But in the meantime, William H. Goat is dead, so you get no victory points for that, but it does eliminate 1 cannibal. So Big Bopper moved. Okay, still in the deployment zone, I have a couple of guys here. This is Sir Gottfried, who used to be from the Frostgrave universe. I think the last time we saw him, he got his head almost taken off by an enchanted bear. And then here is Vidar Grimson, and he's kind of a basic melee as well. So these guys are going to kind of charge forward and try to help out their cannibal compatriots. Vidar and Gottfried both have movement of 6, so we'll just move Gottfried. He's going to move up his 6. And he's going to run for his combat phase. 4. Okay, that is Sir Gottfried, formerly of the city of Frostgrave. Okay, now Mongo's Misfits gets to activate somebody.
King Rat is going to attempt to activate. He needs to get rid of his agony in order to activate. So he needs to roll a 5 or below.
Okay.
And he rolls a 2, so he is no longer in agony.
Yeah, he pulled that goat horn out of his chest, and now he's fine.
So for staunching, what is that a roll against?
Okay, so staunch bleeding. A model may take a staunch action in the combat phase and remove all bleeding tokens on themselves or an ally within 1 inch. So if King Rat moves within 1 inch of Big Bopper, he can use his combat action to staunch that bleeding.
So King Rat is going to move his 6. For the combat action, he's going to staunch the bleeding on Big Bopper. And then I'm going to use my command point to get a free action, and King Rat is going to attack the Shadow Fiend.
Okay, you get 2 shots, 20-inch range. Is there any cover that you can see?
Unless you count the bridge, but I think I can see all of his...
No, you're fine. So King Rat gets 2 shots with his weapon, and unlike melee attacks, which use the fighting skill attribute, basically you're shooting against the target's dexterity. So the Shadow Fiend has a dexterity of 4. So basically you need to roll 5+.
He's in half range and I have point blank.
Okay. He has an attribute called point blank, which means that within half range he gets a +1. So normally the Shadow Fiend's dexterity is 4. Because of the +1, 3.
Doesn't the Shadow Fiend have invisibility?
Yes, thank you. He sure does. The Shadow Fiend has invisibility. That's a legendary trait. So he's not fully invisible right now, but he is partially. He's kind of hard to see, so he has a -1 on ranged attacks. So that counters out your point blank. So dexterity for the Shadow Fiend is 4. You get 2 shots. Roll 2 dice, and you need a 5 or better.
9 and a 5.
2 hits. The Shadow Fiend has a save of 4. So he saved 1, so he took 1 hit. So that is 1 point off of his total of 3.
And then I get to roll on the wound chart.
Right.
We'll go with piercing.
Okay.
4, which is skewered, -2 dexterity.
Okay. Skewered. Okay, so the Shadow Fiend took 1 hit point, and his dexterity is now down to 2, so that's going to make him easier to shoot next time, because he won't be moving around quite so fast. So the last cannibal I have to activate is Vidar Grimson. He's a basic melee with a few attributes, but he's going to move his 6 to start with. And for his combat activation, he's going to run 7. But you can only run as far as your original movement, so he's just going to run another 6. Try to close the distance to these crystal thieves. Okay, I think that is
All of
all
yours.
of the cannibals, and you have probably 1 left, right?
I have Little Bopper.
Little Bopper. Who is a fast, right? What is he?
Little Bopper is a fast skirmisher.
So what's Little Bopper going to do? Now, Little Bopper is basically the younger sibling of Big Bopper, and they came from a universe where everybody starts out small and fast and smart, and the bigger they get bigger and stronger and stupider. So Little Bopper is the speedy one, and Big Bopper is the muscle, so he can toss people around like softballs, like coconuts.
Little Bopper is going to move his 8.
So while William H. Goat was a basic fast, Little Bopper was upgraded to be a fast skirmisher, so his fighting skill and his saving roll are a little bit better.
So for his second action, he is going to charge because he gets +2 to his charge rolls with his special lightning fast trait.
Okay. So he's charging the Shadow Fiend.
Mm-hmm. 5, 7. I don't know if I can make... I don't think I make it.
Okay,
nope, so he stays where he is.
He was getting down in sprint position, but he didn't think he could close the distance. All right, so that is turn 1. We've had the death of William H. Goat, which is very sad.
But it means that you get to activate first.
Yeah, so activation on the next turn goes to the person who's lost the most models, and that would be the Cannibals. So the Shadow Fiend is going to get fiendish here. He is a support controller, that is his troop type, and as part of that, he gets a free action for mind control. And so he is going to target Nigel here, and he's going to try to mind control him and get him to do his bidding. What is Nigel's willpower?
5.
5. So if the Shadow Fiend can roll higher than Nigel's willpower, then he can make Nigel do an action. 9. So he does so. So he's going to tell Nigel that it would be a really good idea for Nigel to charge Little Bopper. A charge of about 3. Rolling for the charge. 4. So Nigel takes leave of his senses and charges into Little Bopper. So Nigel gets 2 attacks. His fighting skill is 6. So I need a 1 through 6. 7 and a 9.
All right.
You dodged a bullet there. So Nigel goes screaming into Little Bopper. Little Bopper's like, Nigel, wait, it's me, man. Yeah, there was a question as to whether that means the Little Bopper has to attack back, but we're going to say he doesn't. But he is going to move back the mandatory 2 inches as if he was an enemy, even though he isn't. So, okay, so that is the Shadow Fiend's free action. So I did make one minor mistake. So normally that free action, the mind control, you use it after you move. So we're going to say the Shadow Fiend chose not to move. He did mind control, which didn't amount to anything, but now he's got his actual combat action, and he's going to curse King Rat, because King Rat is within the 12-inch range. And I've been reminded that we are now in turn 2, so let's rotate the big red die. So the Shadow Fiend is going to try to curse King Rat. He's going to try to basically give him a -4 nerf on his movement, which would stick with him if this curse is successful. So the Shadow Fiend has a will of 6. He needs to roll 6 or less to get his shot off here. And 8. He does not. He fails the curse. So
Dodged a bullet there.
that's good for King Rat. So that is the activation of the Shadow Fiend. And he was trying to do his dark magics, but was not all that successful.
Okay, King Rat is going to shoot at your Shadow Fiend.
Okay.
But he is going to aim first.
Okay.
In his movement phase.
All right. So shooting is different than melee. Melee, you're rolling against your own fight skill. Shooting, you're rolling against the target's dexterity. In this case, the Shadow Fiend has a dexterity of 2. You get +2 because of aiming. You also get +1 because of point blank. He gets -1 off of your shoot attempt because he's shadowy. So with all that, I think net you can only fail on a catastrophic miss. So just don't roll a 1.
Okay.
2 hits. Okay, so the Shadow Fiend has a save of 4. He needs to try to save. 1 save, so that's 1 hit from King Rat on the Shadow Fiend. And now you're going to roll on the piercing chart because he's pierced with a laser bolt. 5 is a...
-2 to fighting skill.
-2 to fighting skill. So the Shadow Fiend is down to his last hit point, and his fighting skill is down to 3. So that is King Rat, correct?
Correct.
All right, the Cannibals need to help out the Shadow Fiend. So Flagellus Maximus, formerly of Cardinal Sin's retinue, is going to move his 6. So I do have a command point this turn, and I think I'm going to use it to run Flagellus Maximus. run him 2.
Oh, jeez.
So he's going to run his 2. And that should bring him in line of sight of Mongo, though.
And even though you're shooting him from the back, it doesn't work on my team.
Yeah, your faction has trickery, and one of the things is that I don't get the normal attack from behind bonuses, because you guys are tricky. So here's Flagellus Maximus here, and he's going to shoot at Mongo. He has 2 pistols. Actually, he has a pistol and some sort of extender whip. What's Mongo's dexterity?
6.
So a couple of things here. Like King Rat, Flagellus Maximus has point blank, so he gets a +1 because he's within half range. And because he's a basic ranged who's been upgraded to a pistolier, he gets to reroll any missed hits. So he's going to shoot. He needs to get now a 6 through 10, but he gets to reroll any misses. 7 and an 8, that's 2 hits.
Mongo has a save of 3. And he doesn't
save, so that's 2 hit points off of Mongo plus 2 rolls on the injury roll. We're going to go with piercing, so 2 rolls. 1 and a 2, which is nothing and disarmed. It says the model can't make ranged attacks and is unarmed in melee until they perform a pickup action. If they don't pick up their weapons in the next activation, they cannot shoot ranged attacks and are unarmed in melee. So on your next activation, you have to do pickup if you want to pick up your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2 points off of Mongo, bringing him down to 1.
Okay.
Okay, so now Mongo's Misfits gets an activation. And who do you have in mind?
Nigel is pretty angry at the Shadow Fiend. Nigel has a move of 6. And he can't get within 2, so we'll go from this direction and put him within right at 2 inches.
Okay.
And then we're going to charge.
Going to charge the Shadow Fiend.
1.
1 inch.
Oh, I stay there. But I can use my command point and charge him again.
No, you can't charge twice. Sorry. You could have run.
I should have run. Well, it wouldn't matter. I couldn't get any closer.
You were just wasn't meant to be. You were not able to complete your charge, so you just stand still, and the Shadow Fiend mocks you. Of course, the Shadow Fiend's getting kind of shadowy. He's down to 1 point, so probably good that you didn't make that charge. Okay, so now it's the Cannibal clan, the Bone Pickers. I think I'm going to move Sir Gottfried, who has still got a paw print on the side of his helmet from the enchanted bear that he fought in Frostgrave and lost. But he was lying there in the snow, and he thought he was going to Valhalla, but this big light appeared, and next thing he knows, he's in the Brutality. So he is going to go ahead and move within 2 inches of Nigel, and maybe the same thing will happen. Maybe when he charges, he won't get the charge. So he's going to charge Nigel. 1. I rolled a 1.
Good. It's just the combat is not meant to be.
So I don't know what's going on there, but wow. Okay. All right. Well, that is Sir Gottfried. He thought he was going to pull a fast one there, but the fates, maybe the power of Ishtar, had other plans. Okay, so Mongo's Misfits gets an activation now, and you have the 2 Bopper brothers left, Little Bopper and Big Bopper. And King Rat just staunched the bleeding on Big Bopper, correct?
Yes.
A little while ago, and Little Bopper almost got cleaved in half with a giant ogre-sized carving knife.
Yes, Little Bopper is still pretty mad about that mind control incident. So he's going to move towards the Shadow Fiend using his movement of 8. And then he is going to run toward the Shadow Fiend for 9. And then I'm going to use my command point to charge. And I got 8.
Okay, so
I'm charging him from behind.
Little Bopper charges into the Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend's fight skill is down to 3, I think. He must have had -2 on his fight skill.
Yep.
So his fight skill is only 3. You get an extra die. Shadow Fiend gets 1 attack.
So my fight skill is 7.
Okay.
So 2 hits.
2 hits. Shadow Fiend's save is 4.
Roll 1 more.
1 more. Didn't save either of those. So he's gone. He's just out.
But
and
he
out
still
gone.
gets to attack.
But he still gets to attack. He gets 1 attack. 2. He actually hits.
Okay.
Even with his dilapidated fight skill. So you get to try to save that.
So my save on Little Bopper is 4. He saves.
He saves. Okay, wow. Good for you.
So the nice thing about taking out the Shadow Fiend is you lose your command point.
I lose my command point, and you get 2 victory points for the Shadow Fiend. You don't get victory points for any other kills, but in this scenario, killing the leader gets you 2. So did you mine some crystals? You did.
I mined 1.
You mine some crystals and you kill the Shadow Fiend. Okay.
Okay, your turn.
My turn.
Your last guy.
So Vidar Grimson is going to move about there. And he's going to try to charge Nigel in the back, and that looks like about a 4-inch charge. 6. So he did it. Okay, so Vidar and Nigel are now in combat.
You don't get any of the bonuses for hitting me in the back, but you do get the bonus for charging.
Right. So you have trickery, so I don't get the rear attack bonus. But I do get 1 extra die for charging, so I get 3 dice. Vidar's fight skill is 5. So, ooh, that's a critical. So 1 critical, that's 2 points. What's your save?
My save is 2.
Okay. Nope, didn't save it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to roll on the wound roll chart twice. I'm going to use piercing against Nigel. And I got a 6 and a 7, which is lacerations, -2 movement, and blinded. Plus he took 2 points. So Nigel is blinded, which means on his next activation, the only thing he can do is move. But on the activation after that, then he's back to normal. So he's wiping the blood out of his eyes. And then -2 movement. So then you get to attack.
I get 2 attacks. My fight skill is 6. I got a 2 and a 7, so 1 hit.
Okay. Vidar has a save of 2. 6. I did not save. So Vidar takes a hit
1
point.
hit.
And you get to roll.
I will do crushing.
Okay. Now Vidar does have a special ability that on the wound roll chart, results of 1 to 4 are treated as nothing because he's sturdy.
0.
10.
Extra damage.
Two hits. Yeah.
Well, you got 2 hits on me. It's only fair.
1 extra damage.
And then I move back 2 inches.
So Vidar is down to 1 wound. Okay, so that is Vidar, and I guess the only one left is Mongo, right?
Mongo, for his first action, is going to pick up his dropped weapon. And he is going to attempt to mine a crystal.
Okay.
And he mines a crystal.
So how many victory points does that bring you to? 4 now, right? 4 to 0. Okay, so now we are in turn 3, and because Mongo's Misfits appear to be racking up a pretty enviable lead, we're going to say this is the final turn, and we'll see if Mongo and his crew can add more points to their victory pile, or if the Cannibals are able to sort of redeem themselves a little bit and at least get a few bones for the altar there. So, okay, so I've lost more than you. I've lost my leader and my goat, and you haven't lost anybody. So I'm going to activate, let's see. Yeah, I think because Mongo's right here and Flagellus Maximus is right there, he is going to forego his movement, and he's just going to take his 2 shots at poor little Mongo. Your dex is 6. Flagellus Maximus gets +1 because he's within half range of Max, and he gets to reroll missed hits. So I got to get a 6 or better. That's a crit, and I get to reroll this other one. And a 3, which is a miss. So 1 crit hit.
And my save is 3.
And you didn't save either of them, so that's 2 points off of Mongo. Is he gone?
So you get 2 points.
2 points
2 victory points.
for the Cannibals. All right, that's Flagellus Maximus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So I lose my command point
You
too.
lose your command point.
Yep.
So sad.
Yes, very sad. I was hoping you would attack someone else so I could use my command point.
Oh, now on the plus side is wherever Mongo woke up this morning, perhaps in a luxury villa, far outside the wasteland, that's where he's just gone to. So he got killed. he disappears with all his gear, and he wakes up in a feather bed.
And I didn't lose my weapon because I picked it up before you could kill me.
That's right. Now, that would have been something if you'd left your Grot Blaster on the ground. That
Yeah, it would have been sad.
Okay, so Mongo has disappeared from the battlefield. And I guess technically the Shadow Fiend and William H. Goat have as well, so they're off somewhere else. Okay, the next misfit to make a move is...
King Rat.
King Rat is thinking, you know, the brutal realm is kind of brutal, but it's still easier than being in the Imperial Guard. We can make room for him under the bridge.
Oh, yeah, that works. There we go.
There you go.
And he is going to take a shot right between my guys.
That's Sir Gottfried?
That's Sir Gottfried.
Oh, no.
And he's point blank,
Okay.
which gives him +1.
Sir Gottfried has a dexterity of 5. So you need to get a 5 or better because of your +1. One hit. See if I can save it. My save is 3. No.
Nope.
He's got 2 hit points, so he's down to 1 now.
Okay.
And so you could
and
roll
piercing.
on a piercing chart.
A 9. Bleeding.
He's bleeding. So I need someone to staunch the bleeding.
He can staunch his own bleeding too.
He's blind. How many hit points do these guys have left? Nigel and Little Bopper.
Let's see. Nigel has 1, and Little Bopper has 3.
So Vidar is going to, I guess he'll move up as close as he can. So we'll just say he moves up within, just at the edge of 2 inches, whatever that is. And then he's going to attempt to charge Nigel. 5, so he makes it. So Vidar gets 3 attacks against Nigel. His fighting skill is 5. 2 hits, 1 critical. Roll 3 dice and try to save.
His saves 2. He doesn't save either.
Okay.
So he's dead.
So that's the end of Nigel.
But I get to attack you back.
You do get to attack back.
So he gets 2 attacks, and his attack is 6. 2 hits.
2 hits on Vidar. His save is 2. Doesn't save, so he takes 2 hits, and he's dead.
Okay, so they're both dead.
So that's the end of Vidar
That's the brutal
and
round.
Nigel.
But you get a victory point for taking me
I
out.
do get a victory point. So who was that? That was Vidar, so now it's your activation.
So I'm going to activate Little Bopper, and he's going to charge Sir Gottfried.
10 you got in there. And I think, actually, a 10 on a charge roll is a bonus. An unmodified roll of 10 for the charge distance is a critical charge, dealing the defender a roll on the wound chart with no saves.
And is that before or after the melee?
It's right now.
Oh, okay.
10 extra point, right? So you did a point.
Yep.
Sir Gottfried only had 1 hit point left anyway, so now he's dead. He's dead upon the charge. So you came running up and just
Bonked him on the head.
Head-butted him in the nose with the end of that club, and so that is the end of Sir Gottfried.
That makes up for all my bad rolls of 1s when I didn't need them.
So that's Little Bopper. Good for you, Little Bopper.
Okay, so now I just have Big Bopper.
Now you just have Big Bopper.
And it looks like he can get there.
All right, he's going to run up
And
climb
try to
the
mine
rock.
some crystal.
And try to mine some crystals.
He does.
And he does. So he gets a victory point for mining some crystals. Flagellus Maximus is still on the board, but he's already activated this turn. You have Big Bopper, you got King Rat, you got Little Bopper, and so really the only thing Flagellus Maximus could do would be try to fight you guys or run over to the Ishtar altar. And I guess had they gone to the shrine more devotedly, maybe things would have been different. But do you have anybody else to move? No, everyone's moved. So we decided to go with 3 turns, so that's probably a good call since most of the cannibals have been dispatched. And victory goes to Mongo's Misfits, but not by a whole lot because I still got 3 victory points and you got 5.
Yeah, we got 3 victory points from mining crystals and 2 for killing the Shadow Fiend.
So Lynn, are you a little surprised that the Misfits were able to sneak into the cannibal camp, run off the cannibals, and then basically just help themselves to the crystals?
That was kind of surprising, but Mongo is pretty dedicated to crystal farming, and now he's home waiting for the others to come back. But he's playing with the crystals. two disappointing things, though.
What's that?
I didn't get to throw anyone that was alive.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any monsters rampaging through, which would have been funny.
Yeah, two things could have happened. One is that Big Bopper, as a brute, could throw people around had he scored more hits on his opponent than his opponent scored on him. He could have tossed him 6 inches either into one of their compatriots or into a stone wall or something like that. And had there been a catastrophic failure with the crystal farming, then the Crystal Guardian would have come on the board and started roaming around, sort of beating up on people at random. So that didn't happen, but probably for the best. Mongo and company had their hands full with the Cannibals anyway. So the upshot is that Mongo and his crew were able to harvest some crystals, and now they can go back to the Wayfinder Underground and hopefully get access to whatever kind of interplanetary gate, interdimensional gate those guys are working on, and get slingshotted to somewhere else in the multiverse where he can land and do more mischief. So no doubt we'll be seeing Mongo and his crew pop up in some future games. But until that happens, as always, folks, thank you very much for watching. If you like the things we do here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please give this video a big thumbs up. And of course, please visit us online at our website, skirmishwargames.com.